it's Sean with another Tesla video, except this one is a little bit different of a Tesla video. I'm not going to be covering a Tesla. In fact, I'm going to be covering Jaguar's very first all-electric I-Pace, and I couldn't be more excited. This is sort of like that foreign exchange student that comes to your high school and everyone is surveying them, checking them up and down to see how they measure up. I'm going to cover 3 categories, just as I have done previously with all of my other Tesla reviews. Number 1, the performance. 2, the exterior design. And 3, the interior design. So let's go ahead and jump in. Jaguar's advertised performance for the I-Pace is 394 horsepower and 512 pound-feet of torque. Its 0 to 60 time is 4.5 seconds. 0.4 of a second faster than Tesla's Model X 75D and 0.2 of a second faster than their 100D. It is equipped with a 90 kilowatt hour battery, and I can say that the acceleration from 0 to 60 is equally impressive to a Tesla. The only thing I did notice about the acceleration from a full stop is that there seemed to be just a 1/2 of a second or maybe a 1/10 of a second lag in the car's acceleration. It's almost as if the car was making sure that I wanted to go from 0 to 60 as fast as possible. The car does have active air suspension and does adjust automatically, especially when you're doing hard acceleration. However, you do have the ability to raise and lower the car manually with analog buttons on the middle console. The handling and turning on the car seem to be pretty sufficient, though I did not get an opportunity to take it into the mountains to see how it handles around sharp curves. Regenerative braking was a really interesting one. It did feel, in my opinion, quite light in comparison to Tesla's regenerative braking. Overall, Jaguar did a really great job on the performance end of things. I think this is one area where Jaguar can easily compete with Tesla. And hopefully over time, Jaguar is able to add more performance features with their ability to push out over-the-air software updates, which is something that I did confirm that Jaguar does have the ability to do. Now let's get into the exterior design of the Jaguar I-Pace. After walking around the car several times, I'm really impressed with what Jaguar has come up with. Though it doesn't have as aggressive as a style as Tesla, I think Jaguar has done a really great job at making sure it's innovative looking enough, but not too innovative that it turns off its existing customer base. They've decided to take the traditional grille of a gasoline engine and transfer it over to the I-Pace. Even though it's not needed, one really interesting strategy to improve aerodynamics was to build in this air scoop that goes from the front grille underneath the hood and across the windshield over the top towards the back. This allows the air to pass over the car easily and reduce the drag. The drag coefficient of the I-Pace is 0.29. That's just slightly less efficient than Tesla's Model X at 0.24. Still far better than most gasoline cars though. So I commend Jaguar on putting some thought into trying to make the vehicle as efficient as possible. In terms of exterior build quality, I didn't see anything right off the bat that jumped out as misaligned or off. Of course, we are talking about a car company that has been producing cars since 1935, so I expect for everything to be extremely well made. The door handles are a feature that Jaguar has carried over from other vehicles. When you lock the car or put the car in drive, the door handles become flush with the body of the car. Though they are not self-presenting door handles, it is a very nice aesthetic to have them flush with the car as you're driving. Let's talk about frunk size, because that was one thing that I saw a lot of people comment on. It is not that big, unfortunately. It's probably large enough to put a few small grocery bags, but that's about it. I'm not sure if the execution of this worked out entirely like I wanted, but I did put my Model S key fob in there to give some context for how big, or in this case, how small the frunk is. In terms of cameras to help assist with driving as well as backing up the car, there were 2 front-facing cameras in the windshield, one on the grille and one on the back of the car. The one on the front grille and back of the car, I believe, were designed to help with the 360 reverse camera, which this was my first experience dealing with, and I think the feature is a little bit gimmicky. Lastly, let's jump into the interior of the car. We'll start with the trunk first. I think the trunk has an average size. There's enough room there to put a full week's worth of groceries in there and or several large suitcases. The one thing I was quite surprised about is that there is no false bottom or coffin storage like what you have in the Model S and X. So where you'd normally be able to put some additional things down there, you can see that Jaguar does provide its owners a fix-a-flat compound, as well as a tire pressure checker and a tow hitch. What about if you wanted to go camping in the back of the I-Pace? Could you do it? Well, I'm 6'1" and managed to fit into the back with the seats laid down. I thought that maybe my feet wouldn't make it, but I'm just short enough that I fit at a diagonal angle. Now, one thing that I did not see on the menu on the touchscreen is an option for camper mode. That may be something that they add in the future, but if you did want to go camping, my guess is that the car would want to turn off after a certain period of time to save energy. They do have hooks on both sides of the trunk walls to hang things like grocery bags. In the event you get a little spirited with the acceleration, your things in the bags won't go rolling everywhere in the trunk. As well, they also offer a 12-volt plug to plug things into. How about legroom in the second row? Well, it's actually surprisingly spacious, and not only do I fit in terms of legs and knees in the back, but my head also fits pretty comfortably as well with that all-glass roof. With the exception of the middle seat in the second row, where you have this sort of awkward piece of headliner, and if you look at the top of the roof on the outside, you actually see that the satellite is positioned right there. So I'm not entirely sure that that's the safest and most healthiest thing to expose your head to, but nonetheless, Jaguar did it. As far as headroom in the front seats, there is zero problems with me fitting as a taller person. Not only headroom, but also legroom as well. The seats are also adjustable, so you can adjust it to your liking. I really appreciate the attention to detail and the thought put into the materials of the interior of the Jaguar. There's details like the Jaguar logo on the headrest of the front seats. The steering wheel has a really nice feel as well. The climate control buttons were really interesting to me. It did take me a little while to figure out. The user interface of those buttons does seem relatively easy once you do play around with it. And a plus of a traditional button or knob like this is that it's easy to find when you're driving. You don't have to search around wondering what buttons or knobs you're grabbing with the climate control. They're easily identifiable. What about charging? This is something that is probably going to be a really big deal for a lot of people who are accustomed to maybe, let's say, Tesla. There is no Jaguar supercharging network or fast charging network. They have not invested the money into creating their own charging network like Tesla has. In fact, they offer a J1772 charger as well as an option for CCS charging too. Now let's dive into the software, because this is, I think, in my opinion, equally important to everything else that has been covered to date. You do have maps and navigation, and the map does tell you where those third-party charging stations are at. One of the other cool things that I thought was a nice touch from Jaguar is that it does show you your range on the map, so you can actually see how far you can go on the map before you run out of charge. This would be something that I think Tesla should definitely integrate into their maps, a visual representation of how far you can go based on the remaining range that you have. It was quite difficult for me to find the features that I wanted to on the touchscreen. I probably spent 20 minutes looking for a particular feature, which is never a good sign for user experience. Also, the software was quite a bit laggy. So though they did a good job at hardware design and integrating these buttons and touchscreens into the car, I think the software leaves a lot to be desired. And if you're producing an electric car, I think it's extremely important to make sure that the software in the user interface and user experience is on point. I'm hopeful though that since this car does have an internet connection and can receive software updates, that Jaguar is thinking about these things and planning on improving that experience in the software. Overall, the design approach that Jaguar took with the I-Pace is exceptional, considering the current customer base that Jaguar has. It's not overly aggressive, but it's not too old-fashioned. It's something that younger people might be attracted to, but most likely it's going to appeal to that traditional audience that Jaguar does currently have. So who would I recommend the Jaguar I-Pace for? Well, I'd recommend it to someone who wants to stay in the Jaguar brand, someone who really doesn't want to drive a Tesla for one reason or another, and finally does not do a lot of long distance driving and can get all of your driving done with its 234 miles of rated range. I do want to mention one other thing here, which is the battery warranty. This is something that, as I was reading through Jaguar's website, they do offer an 8-year 100,000 mile warranty. So if your top-end battery state of charge falls below 70% within that 8-year 100,000 miles, it will be replaced. That concludes this review of the Jaguar I-Pace. I want to give a big shout out to Stevenson Imports here in Denver for letting me take the car for a couple of hours. I'd highly recommend reaching out to them if you're curious about the Jaguar I-Pace. They do have a few I-Paces available and on the lot. However, if you chose to order custom, it does sound like it's taking about 4 months for delivery. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What was your least favorite or most favorite part about the Jaguar I-Pace? Put it in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.